I'm Jerry. I am part of the Kern Girls Kitchen, and I'm a little nervous because this is my first video. Today we're going to talk about yeast because I found out recently after baking for more than 20 years that yeast really does legitimately die, especially when you buy big packages and don't realize that you're not going to use them as fast as those little packages. I haven't bought them in the little envelopes in a long time because I will use way more than that, but I do buy these little jars, and I've always used them very quickly. So I decided I'd buy a huge bag, which it's mostly gone, but I thought I'd lost my touch recently and couldn't figure out why my bread wasn't rising. Well, needless to say, that expired in 2017, but it lasted probably 2 years longer than the expiration date. So I'm going to show you a few things that I'm doing right now. I'm doing the experiment because I did it the other day and was like, oh, this yeast is very dead. But with that being said, I decided to go researching and figure out why instant yeast and active yeast have different labels because I've always used them interchangeably. What I found was that instant yeast is actually ground finer and it works faster. It also goes into the flour mixture, where the active yeast is bigger and it actually goes into the liquid. These, most people know, they're dormant, but they're living creatures. So when you bring them out of dormancy, you want to give them water and you want to give them some sugar. There are recipes that don't call for sugar with your yeast, and I always add a little bit of sugar, especially into a water mixture. You want to feed them. Everything on earth needs sugar, especially yeast, especially when they've been sleeping for a very long time, and you want to make sure that you are making them happy so they make your bread happy. So I'm going to show you some different leaveners. Some I have failed at and some I have succeeded at, and in my research, because I really like research, I found some really cool stuff about yeast that I didn't know, and I thought I was a great baker, but until you know everything about them, you actually don't use them correctly. So let me turn this around. So these are my dead ones. So this originally was active dry yeast and I ran out, so I just thought that I would add this yeast in there, and then I used it thinking, okay, it'll just work. Problem was, I thought initially, this one you store in the refrigerator after opening, and this one you don't. So I just threw the jar back in the refrigerator. So when I tried to use it again, I thought it was the cold. And then I realized I had a big problem. So I went searching because I knew you could test your yeast. But like I said, I had never had yeast die before. So I did a little experiment. And it failed. So it's dead. If you can see in here, this is a half a cup of warm water. Warm water is 105 to 110, because remember, they're living, you don't want to kill them. This is only milky. There's no activity in it at all. It has 2 teaspoons of instant yeast. I will put some formulas in the comments or in the description box below, because I didn't realize that when you interchange these, they're not the same. So there's some formulas to figure out how to use them in place of the other one. But 105 to 110. This is a instant read thermometer. I love it. I've had a few online classes that say buy something expensive. This is not expensive and it works beautifully. Of course, teaspoon. And I love these little cups. They're condiment cups that I bought, and I use them mainly when I do sourdough, which I'll talk about that shortly. So I'm going to make some bread, and so I used my new ones. This time I have Red Star again, and this one is instant yeast. The instant yeast, you also may see it as bread machine yeast. Same thing. So if you look at this one, look at how bubbly that is. It is alive, and you can tell it's alive. This one is definitely dead. There's nothing happening in there. So these are going to be rolls for my daughter because she loves them. She can snack on them. She heats them up. She does all kinds of things with them, and she loves them. So with that being said, I'm going to talk really quickly about some other leaveners. If you know anything about sourdough, you know that it is an art. I am not very artistic with sourdough, and I am struggling. I have taken a master class online. I have tried different flours, and I'm still failing. So this is probably going to stay suspended. So this is Everest. I named him after a mountain to climb, and obviously we have failed right now. This just came out of the refrigerator. So usually if you refrigerate it, it stays in there for a week, and then you pull it out, let it warm up a slight bit, and then you're going to take most of it out, and then you're going to add some nice fresh water. I use bottled water to make sure there's nothing in there to kill the culture, because the culture is hard to maintain. And then I add some good flour. This I used to do by measuring, and then I weighed it, and I did all kinds of things. I have tried every formula. I cannot get him to do what I need him to do. So my bread doesn't get rise, so we're going to give him a break for a while. He's going to continue to stay in the refrigerator. But this is him also. There's some videos online. I might do one in the future. But this is really cool. So he is dried. Basically, you are going to get him nice and healthy. Make sure he is fed multiple times over a few days. And then you're going to put this out on a parchment paper, very, very thin, and you're going to cover it with another piece of parchment. You let it dry for 24 to 48 hours, and then you just break it up and store it. So all I will have to do is give that some nice flour and water, and you will resurrect it from the dead. But right now I'm giving up on sourdough because the frustration is very, very real. So, like I said, I'm very excited about this. We're going to have to use it very soon, so this video is not going to be much longer. I just want to talk really quickly about baking powder and baking soda. So baking soda is sodium bicarbonate. It is used for a lot of things. Obviously, it is used in laundry soap. There's a lot of other products that use it, and there are some that just dry it, and they just keep it that way. And it works wonderful. So the interesting thing about the baking powder is that if you see here, it says double acting. What that means is, if you look at these, it actually has sodium bicarbonate in it. The sodium aluminum sulfate and the monocalcium phosphate actually act differently. So where the baking soda is actually something that is going to be water activated, these other ones are actually heat activated, and that's where you get the double acting from. You are going to find these in biscuits, quick breads, things that are not going to be leavened for a long period of time. So like I said, I will leave things in the description. I will leave the formulas to figure out the conversion from instant yeast to active yeast and vice versa. And maybe some other cool little tips